God's guideline to Abraham when he drove him out of the region of Ur of the Chaldees was to forsake all of the idols and to believe in a promise where he tells him that his descendants shall be like the stars of the heaven and the dust of the earth, and that all of his descendants will be blessed. And he gives him the promise of a coming child from empty loins. This will take a creative miracle. And the fallacy of human nature, do it myself. And so he gets frustrated in his older age, and he takes unto himself Hagar, who worships idols, from Egypt, out of the land that they were drawn away from later on in life. He went from the Ur of the Chaldees into Egypt and picked up Hagar. When he drew Hagar to himself as a concubine, Ishmael was created. What do you do with the problem that ensues? Because soon after, here comes the miracle child, Isaac, out of the womb of a woman who cannot bear at the age of 90-some. And now we have the child who, by all Middle Eastern customs, is to have the birthright. And he is not going to be allowed to have it. We know from studying today the terrible troubles of society when a father rejects a child. You never get over it, and every generation beyond it suffers because of it. And they bear a great shame. You don't grow up with the confidence and the exuberance that the child who has been blessed possesses. But God himself will keep his word to the nth degree. What is he going to do? He has to give a blessing to Ishmael as well, because Ishmael is part now of the stars of the heavens and the dust of the earth, and injured, damaged goods, but he is part, not his fault. And so God speaks to him and says, you will rise up and you will have 12 great princes, 12 great nations under you. Then to Isaac also the same promise, 12 great tribes, 12 great nations. And so anyone today can trace all of the Arab people and all of the Jewish people back to that promise. You can see the 12 tribes of both. Then Abraham later in life marries another woman of the same descent, not from the same line, and she bears 6 more sons, Keturah. So the 6 sons of Keturah and the 1 son Ishmael are drawn into the death of Abraham. It's recorded in the Bible, and they are given their blessing, all they will ever get, and driven away. Imagine the hurt and the anger to settle the score. This cannot be settled on a diplomatic table any more than a wronged child in a sandbox will settle the score. The minute the mother who's disciplined turns her back, the sand starts flying again. Yeah. And that's what you have going on in the sands of the desert. And I have met King Abdullah Hussein and people from his staff, and have some wonderful relationships with Arab leaders in the Middle East. Ali Yeshev, who is the new ambassador to Jordan, who was recently the ambassador to Denmark, is the only Arab man who has ever won the Israeli Peace Prize. He is a very, very precious man. I met him at the Ul Panakiva teaching Arab to the girl soldiers of the Israeli army, a very loyal member of the Knesset, a very trusted member. I have also dined often with the mayors of the villages on the Golan, the Druze. The Druze are yet another people of the region, not descended from Abraham, but we know them well from the story of Moses. They are the descendants of Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, and always show up in the history of the Jewish people as their saviors. They were among the kings of the East, if you study your history, that brought the gold, frankincense, and incense to Christ in the manger, which helped him to escape for 11 years for safety away from Herod's wrath into Egypt. They are also the ones who rescued Joseph, the princely son, another who receives the birthright and not the elder, Reuben, from the loins of Jacob, who becomes, his name changed to Israel. They rescue him out of the pit where his brothers have thrown him after the tearing of the multicolored coat. We know the Bible story. And they send him into the slavery of Egypt, where God turns his story from the dungeon to the king. Here they are again, the descendants of Jethro. We see them in that ancient time. Before Jethro comes along, here are these people. Then comes along Jethro, and his daughter Zipporah marries Moses. And again, another savior is there for the Jewish people for 40 years in the desert. And then it's Jethro who says to his son-in-law, get 70 elders to help you rule this great people. Now in modern times, these same ones are the Druze people who live all along the borders of the Golan and the borders of Syria and the borders of Lebanon, a people torn by these political divisions. I've literally stood at the shouting fence, spent the night in their homes, and watched these agonizing women call to their sisters, mothers, brothers across the fence in Syria and Lebanon, never allowed to touch their face, their hand again, just like the wall that split Berlin. And it's an amazing story of people in conflict.
So what you're doing here is you're painting the picture of the Mideast going all the way back to Abraham, telling us how all these different sects or tribes originated and how there was conflict all the time. Now, would that relate to what we have now in Iraq with the Sunnis and the Shiites? Now take this fellow Saddam Hussein. He professes to be a religious person, but the things that he did, of course, the religion sanctioned some of these things, unfortunately, the beheadings and stuff. He certainly was a tremendous evil person.
He was very evil. First of all, let me say this. The book, the Quran, that the Muslim people use, I saw one of the professors from a Dallas institution on a show with Larry King Live not too long ago. Very learned man, obviously very brilliant, discussing the Quran and discussing jihad. Most of the people born into the Muslim religion do not believe in jihad. They would rather be left alone by this. Just as if you were born into a mafia family like The Godfather, and you really didn't want to be a part of it, but you were trapped from birth. And I would say this to you. I was born in a family with a Presbyterian Protestant mother and a Catholic father. Both of them took me to church. That didn't make me a Christian until I had a personal relationship with Jesus Christ of my own and prayed that prayer as Billy Graham led it on a television one night. I can go park my car in the garage. It's a car. But if I remove the car and sit myself in there, just because I'm sitting in the garage does not make me a car. And if I go to sit in a church or a mosque, just because I was born into it doesn't make me a Christian or doesn't make me a Muslim. You are trapped in a thing until you make your own personal decisions. Now, when you read the Quran, it talks about Jesus. It talks about him as the last prophet to return. It talks about him as the miracle worker. It gives credence to the fact that he had a virgin birth with Mary. And there are some sayings in it that are being twisted now into their greatest extreme. I think they did not have a good origin in the beginning, but that's my personal opinion. I don't think they had the most truthful origin. They came by some dreams and visions that Muhammad had that we could question from our background. However, left alone for what they are, they don't usually cause trouble. They are only causing trouble now by men with an evil agenda who have drummed up this idea of jihad. They are the minority. They are certainly not like the ones I've dined with in Israel many times who are Muslim, who go to their mosque and are peaceful people. This is not the religion I would embrace. I have very different beliefs. But most of them left to themselves would not be engineering this type of terror and trouble. Where did it come from? The Bible speaks of the nations of the earth being like trees in a field. And it says to keep your eye on watching all the trees. Jesus himself spoke about watching the fig tree blossom again. Basically, the scene that you have with all the Husseins, the Hussein of this nation of Jordan, the Hussein of Syria, the Hussein of Iraq, all of the Hussein cousins are struggling for the same thing. Who will be the leader of the Arab nations? Who will be the great prophet? Who will be the great Messiah, so to speak, of all of this group of people? That's one agenda that can corrupt any man, whether he be Christian, Jew, or Gentile or Muslim. What an agenda? Your ego.
It's Baraka.
Yeah. There's another factor here, and this is very difficult for the United States. It's very difficult for our president. We've been looking at it in the gas pumps all summer long. Difficult for the common man. These people were of no trouble whatsoever. They got along very well, even with the Israeli pioneers that lived there during the 1800s, and with the groups in Samaria and other places who never left after the great fall of Titus in 70 AD, and even during the invasion of the Ottoman Turk Empire. Most of the time, these people, Jew and Muslim, got along fairly well. Now, there were incidences where heads were lopped off in the sand and aggression with converting by the sword. This is all in the Quran. This has been done. But there were large portions of history where there was some abiding peace. It was not until Hitler, another damaged man who was raised by a mother without a father, who happened to be Jewish, but persecuted 6 million Jews and put them in the oven. out of his own angst, hurt, and anger of being born into a race that he didn't want to be born into. And you have this man finally coming to this critical place in the war in the 1940s where he's run out of fuel. So where will he get it? He has sent exploratory teams down into the desert sands that no one else was paying attention to. And suddenly he finds these huge gluts of oil. And then all the world begins to pay attention at the ending of this war. Hitler didn't get his hands on very much of it, but we did.